We do need progressive upgrades of our networks, and preferably before the demand accumulates in a surge, because we see that clearly lifestyles, work styles are transforming. The pandemic was, of course, a very particular trigger. We now have a demand signal to industry that these sorts of levels of traffic are likely to be maintained, and therefore infrastructure needs to be built to meet that, including in the surge conditions. I think we also have a message to public authorities that in areas where the market cannot reach for the new normal lifestyle, including for types of economic growth that can be underpinned with remote working, it is more urgent than ever to support industry rollout with various types of public support, only where needed, of course. And that's one reason why in the European Recovery Plan, we have put a lot of emphasis as one of our flagships that member states should integrate in their national plans, the connectivity piece. There's an awful lot that public authorities can do to make the investment case easier, and actually to limit the number of cases where public money is needed to somehow close the gap. So in the midst of the crisis in September, we decided to give a push in this respect with our recommendation toolbox to member states to facilitate rollout through things that are not covered by the Broadband Cost Reduction Directive, but which are available. They are quick wins in terms of smart authorization, of better access to public information on different infrastructures already available. This is an opportunity that is there for the taking if we want to go beyond Sunday speeches about facilitating broadband rollout. That's a legal obligation in the first place, and therefore it puts any member state, be it on the whole code or on specific things like the spectrum assignment deadlines, it puts them, of course, in a situation of infringement. But what is much more important, I think, is that delays in this respect create uncertainty for businesses that have to make decisions on rollout. It creates uncertainty for consumers because a certain number of provisions were adopted in their interest. So I think first and foremost, those authorities have to explain themselves to their own communities, and not just to faraway Brussels as to why this isn't happening. Of course, it is always easier to do consolidation across borders from a competition point of view because you have fewer competitive constraints being brought under the one roof. But for those cases where companies are looking for in-country consolidation, I think we have seen that the Commission is scrupulous in looking at whether the pre-existing competitive landscape was a sustainable one and would have provided additional investment, competition, consumer gains, and business gains if it kept forward. But where it concludes that that is not the case, for example, as in the Dutch mobile merger, then it draws the conclusion from that. So it really is tailored to the facts of the case. And the facts, of course, may evolve even within the same national market as technology changes, as investment demands perhaps increase with new technology generations. So, of course, we keep revisiting this as cases come along. But the ultimate test is still the same one. Which market structure, the one pre-merger or post-merger, would be the more beneficial for customers across the dimensions of price, of quality, of choice, of innovation. And I think we all agree that those are the right metrics. More generally, if we jump to the spectrum piece, obviously we are disappointed always when we hear of member states that are not able or have not, as it were, made themselves able to reach the deadlines put for the 5G core bands. And that's something we pursue very actively with the member states to try to move that along. And then at the national level, of course, to get back to the earlier question, the Electronic Communications Code is supposed to frame in a more modern way the mission of national regulators and how they interact with the sector, and still leaves plenty of national discretion because the markets still are quite different in many respects, but is a benchmark that needs to be used. So looking forward, assuming the code will be transposed, even if, as said, with some delays in some countries, the next thing is really to look at types of national and local regulation, which are not direct telecom regulation, but are rules regarding deployment, regarding construction, civil works, and so on, which can still be improved. And that's where the review of broadband cost reduction directive will come in, and where, as I said earlier, we tried to move states already forward on a best practices basis with the recommendation we adopted in September. On the bright side, the networks were able to deliver things that we perhaps didn't expect when the first surge came. But clearly, in order to do that without having to ask streaming service standard definition and other things that were done back in the spring, then the investment needed in order to maintain and respond to customer expectations and demand, not just for entertainment, but really for business critical activity, there's still work to be done.